Hi and good evening, everyone. My name is Albert, and this is VlogsBoutNothin. Thank you very much for taking the time out of your very busy Monday to join me. I really appreciate that. If I'm in fact ever wrong, which, is probably like 99% of the time, then I definitely don't recognize it, and it's no fault of your own, but truly, it is an evening on a weekday, and you're here, so I really appreciate that. Listen, title of the video is what it is. I want to talk about two things, and I want to kind of approach the main subject matter in kind of the most vlogs about nothing kind of a way possible, in that it is very important. And, while we joke about absolutely everything here on this side of the phone, which is my choice, right? As it is, I am where I am in life because of this attitude. So call it what you want, but eventually it'll get me somewhere. Regardless, you see what I'm saying. Nothing that I ever say here on this show should ever be taken to the point to where, like, it makes you feel a certain type of way, in that you may dislike me more than you already do, which is kind of weird, but I still appreciate you being here and watching my channel. It's a very inclusive place, and in fact, diversity, from what I understand, can be a very scary word to some people, which is actually why that's just the perfect lead-in into what I really want to talk about tonight, which is modern-day racism. Okay? Now, we're going to sandwich that real serious and heavy, dark topic with something a little more light. And, I really am curious to see if anybody else out there thinks that Marshmello, yes, he may be an industry plant, but Marshmello the magician, Marshmello the musician, is he like a cannibal? Because he's a marshmallow and he eats marshmallows, and I know that joke's probably been beat up 3 million times, but I've never heard it. And I'm just a curious middle-aged man who wants to know more about Marshmellow's background. Funny thing is, I did actually see this whole documentary on Marshmello, because what else would I watch in between time of watching endless videos of other informational stuff? I mean, I don't just, like, I don't know. Let's talk about not Marshmello being a cannibal, because he's eating marshmallows in all of his videos, and I'm really get twisted about it, because it's sort of like, is he eating marshmallows? I understand that he always, gets them in the bowl and the spoon to his mouth, but then his mouth doesn't open because he's a box marshmallow. And, yeah, it would be incredibly difficult and stressful to be Marshmello, so it's a good thing he dropped so many bangers. But alright, so let's talk about modern day racism, and link in the description below to a really cool video that talks, more about exactly what I'm talking about. And it kind of, sparked my interest and wanted me to really kind of weigh in on the subject, just because, well, we make 4 videos a day. There's lots of content that's needed. I need to think constantly about how to talk about different stuff. There's more than a handful of people, who join us every single day, plus the other dozens of people that stumble upon one of the 600 videos that the channel now has. So if you're watching this now, or, in the future, again, welcome to the channel. And it's difficult to talk about some stuff. And I never want to be the guy that, uses a certain type of conversation to attract attention so that we can get absolutely nothing done. That would be false. That's inaccurate. In that I myself, I'm a Hispanic guy, I'm brown, and I'm a middle-aged millennial, and I feel like a lot of the stuff that we talk about, or that I present, to the open world, is stuff that I feel like could take a couple minutes out of your life and really think about, as it concerns the world that we see around us. And, from one perspective, and we can approach it in this way, a very positive way, in that America is not racist. I truly believe this. I know that's a loaded statement based on hundreds of years of a certain kind of behavior, but those generations, as so far as I'm concerned, don't really speak for the future America. And how many Americans have unfortunately had to have said that? the future America is the best. You know, that one's going to be the one that's not racist. That one's going to be the one that allows for growth and prosperity. And I think the answer to that question is a little bit deeper in how we really need to assess the very many things we all have in common as compared to the few things that we don't. And I know that historically speaking, it's really easy to marginalize people based on the color of their skin. And maybe even moreover, attributing the color of that skin to a certain religious doctrine or a certain totalitarian practice or whatever that might be. I really feel like Americans in their current state are not racist. Now, unfortunately, I have to say that argument on behalf of also the boomers and the Xers, the generations who have only continued to perpetuate the kind of systemic, institutionalized racism that, unfortunately, we've all had to grow up in. Myself included, a millennial, you know, and, well, Gen Z and Alpha really don't have that much of a future, whether they're black, brown, or white. And that's what ties us together. That's what brings us on more of a level playing field than not. We have so many more things in common than we don't. Our governments all around the world refuse to recognize independent sovereignty. In some cases, they go into different parts of the world and create havoc and arguably do more damage than they are ever or ever have been helpful. Speaking on behalf of really the underdevelopment of the largest continent on this planet and its lack of stability as a result of unification and solidarity through the most common core group of people that have the most to lose in this world, which is, statistically speaking, 98% of all of us. That's what we have in common. Ladies, gentlemen, they, them, all. We have so many more things in common than we do not. And it really is important to evaluate that kind of a perspective than it is to judge people based on what we've been told through our government, who clearly, at very best, have only been 80% criminal. In that, in some countries, like the United States of America, which I'm ultimately arguing in that we're not racist, has an opportunity and ultimately an obligation to our fellow human beings all over the world. And that is, in fact, to make a stand. That is, in fact, to have the difficult conversations. Whether that means breaking up holiday dinners at Thanksgiving this year or Christmas 6 weeks later. Christmas is not 6 weeks later. My math is incredibly wrong. Also, did we really ever understand whether or not, or did we talk about Marshmello and his cannibalism as it concerns Marshmellos? I know it may sound like a broken record, but I'm just trying to lighten the mood here. What I'm talking about is really important, and it really, really matters to so many different people, not just here in this country, but all over the world. And so it is our obligation as millennials, as alphas, as Gen Zers, to fix what's wrong. And what's wrong is so clearly in front of us. We've talked about, in a way, racism. We've spent about 8 minutes or so talking about racism, with the sprinkle of cannibalism brought to us courtesy of, Marshmello. Link in the description below. Keep it mellow. But the important thing is that in all of what we've discussed, which essentially boils around to nothing, because I've presented no facts, I've presented no statistics, I have no empirical evidence to offer any of you out there. I simply ask that you look outside, and when you're out there in the world, really ask yourself if it's fair, if it's really a fair setup for everyone, and whether or not it's, kind of in our best interest to make what we see around us just as equally available to all of us, in that we should all be able to afford groceries. We should all be able to afford to go to the doctor. We should all be able to afford not to be homeless. There are certain things that we have in common that outweigh our differences. Point in fact, bet, hands over, I think That's the clearest way that I can present to all of you, without really talking about racism, that what we see out there is important. And if we see a problem, I think that we should fix it. And I think that people who refuse to address these problems by either making them worse or avoiding them are just as guilty as the people who very much perpetuate the kind of hateful doctrine that divides the very people who have the most in common. And that would be all of us. That would be you watching this video. It would be me. It'd be everyone here in this community. It'd be everybody that you've basically ever met, because there are many, many people on this planet. And it's important that we keep everyone in mind. Because when we feel like the world's being unfair, can you imagine how unfair it's been to people that have been born into a system that is not the United States or is not the European Union? It's really important. I hope that you guys have a really good night. Thank you for taking the time out of your day to join me. I know that we never really are ever going to know, I guess, whether or not Marshmello is a cannibal because he eats marshmallows. I do know that ultimately we will find out whether or not we are a racist country. I think that time will tell, and time will ultimately either put the nail on the coffin, or it will remove that very lid and begin to examine the kinds of solutions that can be brought forth in a constructive, peaceful, positive approach. I hope that you guys have a really good night, and thank you again for watching my channel. I really appreciate y'all. Bye.